Everybody, in this video, we're talking Marvel Snap and the best cards to spend those free choices each month that you're gonna get. All Series 3, what are the best choices for you? Because you only get one a month. We put a graphic together, so we'll have that on the Discord and we'll also show it in the video right now. This graphic is for the token shop, the free Series 3 guide. This is the version just before we know about the Shuri nerf that's going to come on April 18th. Now, technically, this is sort of a mix because I actually put Shuri, Bast, Valkyrie, the ones that are dropping in this guide, because I want you to know that you might want to save for them just in case. So the month of April is a little bit odd, but we want to talk about it. So here's the graphic. We're going to have it on the Discord, like I mentioned, so check it out there. I'm going to go through each section. So the way I have these sections broken up is maybe buy, should buy, must buy. Again, all of this stuff tends to be a little subjective based on your gameplay, cards you've gotten from the ladder, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, I think this applies for all players and progress that you've made in game. So in the maybe buy section, and these aren't necessarily in specific order, but I did sort of make the top tier and bottom tier thing and tried to get them from left to right. It's not necessarily a science to it. I just did it and it was like, gives you an idea. So in the maybe buy section, we've got cards like Titania, which is a really good, fun card. It does take some getting used to play, but for 1 cost and 5 power, it is solid if you can figure it out. Destroyer also plays with a lot of cards really well. I really like how powerful this can be. I've actually thrown this one in my Shuri deck with Cosmo and Armor too, because it sometimes can bail you out if you don't get the setup that you need with maybe your Red Skull and your Taskmaster. Thor is just a decent card. I wasn't 100% certain I wanted to add Thor to this one, but I do like him, especially when you're playing with Lockjaw, we'll get to in a bit. Venom, I think, is a great destroy card if you're into that archetype. And sometimes, depending on locations, he can get really, really big. I also put the Hood here because you are going to get a 1 cost, 6 power demon. This was better when Quinjet was around, but I still think Hood is pretty decent in some of those destroy archetypes as well. I threw in Black Panther and Brood in here as well because those can be decent cards, especially if you're into Zola. You get that Black Panther popping around a little bit. It can get pretty big. Even with Shuri, it can double it up more. Brood with any sort of thing like with Cerebro. And then I actually have Quinjet in this section. I have it kind of off into the corner because it's not as good as it used to be, but it's definitely something you might want to consider as a maybe buy, depending if you're doing things with Phil Coulson, any of those shield cards that bring you additional ones, or maybe Moon Girl. The next section we've got is should buy. These are things that you should strongly consider buying that can help you out quite a bit. Again, I've kind of got a semi-top tier and bottom tier. Regardless, they're all in the same group. Daredevil, fantastic card. I love that you can see that turn 5 from your opponent. Sometimes you can snap and make them go away. Depends what they've got. It also is great for Professor X or locking something down. Lockjaw, he's been everywhere in the game, specifically Thanos. I do think he still is a great card to bring into your collection. You can bring a lot of high-powered cards that are maybe 6 cost, bring them in, and you could pair them up with things like Dracula too. If you do what I call the Lockjaw Biggie Smalls, where you drop a small cost cards to bring those big cards out a little bit, and then you make sure that whatever you've got in your deck is a high power card, then you've got Dracula to discard it and take on whatever that power is. Magneto is just a great card in general to move things around. You do got to get used to how you want to play him. Sometimes he's good to sort of sacrifice a lane. Sometimes it's good to help you win a lane. It just depends, but he is a good card. Mr. Negative is a specific archetype. I almost put him in must buy, but I thought that might be specific to how much I like to play him. It is sort of a feast or famine type card, but I think some of the things that are happening with new cards coming, I think he might be a little bit more reliable. But the key with him is you do need those Psylocke type cards to be able to play him. You do not want to play him with Electro unless you can destroy Electro. Wong is always, while he's ongoing and sometimes easily countered with either Enchantress or Cosmo, he is still, I think, a good card. Death, I normally would consider her almost a must buy. I think as you get higher collection levels, she becomes more of a must buy because she's really good. But early on, it might be hard to destroy a lot of cards. I mean, you do get Killmonger and you can play a lot of ones. So depending where you're at there, if you really want to lean to that, she can become a must buy type card. Absorbing Man to copy anything on reveal, I think, is also another great option here. He could be in the lower tier of the should buys, but I have him in the upper tier for now. So in this should buy lower tier, Psylocke, again, if you're trying to get some extra energy next turn, maybe for that Mr. Negative that you want to drop earlier, Psylocke's a good card. Ultron is great when paired up with Patriot or potentially getting to those locations that are hard to reach. Really, you don't want to do him for just that because he'll fill a lot of places up, but he's pretty solid with that Patriot deck. Then we've got Arnim Zola. We mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's really good if you play a certain lane smart and you know you've got a big card there you want to destroy and put in other locations. Some people might want to say a must buy on him. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's definitely solid and also fits decently in a Mr. Negative deck. Spider-Man, while he's lost a little bit of his luster, I think he is great to sort of lock down lanes, especially right now when I'm shooting this video. We've got Sinister London locations so that it'll be copied in different locations. And that is really, really annoying when you can only play in one location, especially if someone drops them on turn 5. Ooh, and you didn't lock those other 2 lanes down really strong. You're sort of toast. Captain Marvel, I think, is a great should buy card, especially if you start pairing her with Shuri where she doubles up, and then even a Sinister London type situation where she'll go to multiple locations and then fly around. That's a really strong card to help you out late and keeps your opponent on your toes. Super Skrull, he is almost a must buy, but because sometimes he will, well, if there's any ongoing effects that you don't want, he will copy them no matter where they are. Now, I also love him in my negative deck because a lot of times if someone else plays an Iron Man or some sort of Mystique or whatever, or Wong, this dude can go off like crazy, crazy good. I do think they need to fix the animations though, so you can see the Cosmo and or the armor at least. Some of the other ones you can deal without, but those two, it's really nice to know when they're there. And last but not least, the must buys. Again, I want to preface this by saying this is before any Shuri nerf. Okay, so she could drop off this list, but I wanted to have her in here because in the month of April, her and a number of other cards are dropping. And I think it's important that you think about that before spending your tokens, even though we're 10 days into the month when I'm shooting this video. But if you've been watching before, then you know that that's something that you should have waited for. So like and subscribe. All right, so first up, Sarah. I do have Sarah early on in this. She's the hotness right now, especially with Hitmonkey coming on. I will have the counter to that later, obviously, because it's just an important. She-Hulk, I think, still is a fantastic card and is in this must-buy realm. So Shuri, again, I think if she doesn't get nerfed too hard, she should still be considered a must-buy. I hope that the adjustments they make to her still leave her in this tier. I'm a bit worried, though. So you might not necessarily want to risk it on hers, but we'll see. Regardless, when she drops, we'll know what the nerf is. Bast, I think Bast is a fantastic card, period. Consider it. Really good card, is being used all over the place. Helps you increase the power of those lower power cards. Mysterio is a great synergy there. It's really, really solid. Doom, another card to get to hard locations to reach. You sometimes can pair it up with Odin, depending if you're playing it with Lockjaw, or if you're dependent, you get the Titan location where it lowers the cost of Dr. Doom, or if you play Psylocke on turn 4 to bring in Dr. Doom on turn 5. My sweet, sweet Arrow. Now, I left Arrow in must buy still. I think it's still a very strong card. It's not used as much as it used to, but I think it still has a lot of power in the game and can drastically change a matchup if used properly. Mystique, again, I think the fact she copies she's just a great card. I love her. I'm going to leave her in here for the foreseeable future. I don't see a reason not to have Mystique top tier. Wave is a good card if used properly. It's anytime you want to bring something either 5 or 6 power in on turn maybe 4, or you want to limit what your opponent does on their last turn. Say they've got a Hitmonkey. Well, guess what? You wave on turn 5, they're not going to do that. So it can be bringing cards early or limiting cards late. It just depends how you want to play it. Sandman, I mentioned earlier as a counter to Sarah. That's why I have him in as a must buy. He seems to be a real good card that you want to use to help limit your opponent in doing whatever they might do late in game so they can only play one card. I'm starting on the bottom tier on the right side because I think Electro and Sandman sort of go hand in hand. Electro, if you're going to limit yourself to 1 card per turn, you really want to do that to your opponent as well. So I want to start with Electro. There's a reason I have him on the right next to Sandman. All the must buys, while there is a bottom tier, sometimes again, it depends what you're playing with. All right, so Patriot's the next one up on the must buy list. He is an archetype by himself, a great card. I personally don't have him yet. He's definitely one I would consider buying lane. Valkyrie, this one could be a should buy, but man, is she powerful, especially with the Shuri meta that's going on. Anything you want to lower. Now, remember, it does not affect ongoing cards. So when you play her, you want to have a card in that lane that you've got. Either you've got to make sure you've got more cards, or you've got some sort of ongoing card, or even a Bishop or an Angela that's going to get points after Valkyrie does what she does. Cerebro, another archetype that you can use. I don't know if I'd necessarily must buy him, but at the point where maybe you really need to spend something, he is a card that can be used to make a whole archetype and a number of decks. So for that reason alone, I have him in must buy. Do I think it's a great deck type? No, not necessarily, but because he generates so many deck types, I did drop him into must buy. Now, Red Skull's been getting nerfed a lot, and again, we've got these adjustments happening to Shuri, but I still have Red Skull and Taskmaster in the must buy list. So depending what shakes out, these guys could drop down, but I still really like both cards. Red Skull is good at 12, not fantastic, but good. And if you can double him up, he's even better. And then Taskmaster obviously is in the same boat. I love what happens with Taskmaster. If Taskmaster was adjusted to 6 power, I don't think I'd like him at all. Honestly, I think he would completely fall off. So I really hope they don't adjust him. And the last card I want to talk about here is Luke Cage. This is probably the one that is going to surprise most people to be in the must buy. And I'm going to tell you the reason that I have him in for the April must buy list. And that is because with High Evolutionary coming in the near future, you've only got a couple months to get cards. So I want to list Luke Cage in that must buy tier until we get High Evolutionary. He might fall off that depending on how good we see High Evolutionary really is in game, but I'm really thinking High Evolutionary is going to be a top-notch card, and you're going to want to be playing Luke Cage along with him. Again, I had a video on all this. Check the playlist on the YouTube channel. Links in the description below, but there will be ways to counter the High Evolutionary Luke Cage, but I do think he's going to be a key card to have in that deck. So that's it. That's the graphic. I hope it's helpful. Again, it's going to be on the Discord, which is linked in the description below. I'll have it in my resources channel. If this video was helpful at all, please consider hammering down that like button. I'd love to hear what you thought was wrong, what you think should be changed, how you would maybe adjust certain things, or any general comments on what you think of this graphic and tier list. I think it could be a good guide to help a number of different players, so please share with your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. Again, hammer down like buttons, much appreciated. All right, until next time, hope you have a wonderful day.